we'll just start with just like a teaser here. What is it? And then we'll get into deeper approaches for each one in a separate module or separate section. Okay. So what is marketing mix model? A lot of you know this, and just to kind of level set everybody's kind of understanding. Simply a regression model, and there can be very advanced models inside that box. It can be a very simple linear regression inside the box, but fundamentally it's just a box that correlates inputs to outputs, and you put advanced algorithms inside it to to do advanced correlations. Okay, and broadly speaking, you can think of the inputs as two big buckets: media inputs, which is the spend on TV, spend on Facebook, spend on radio, spend on search, all that stuff, and second bucket is econometric variables. Seasonality, economic trends, interest rates, whatever is relevant to your business that's not media can go into the econometrics modeling bucket or variables bucket. Okay, you take those inputs and then you correlate that to final sales. It could be e-com sales, retail sales, omni-channel sales, app downloads. It could be different metrics like revenue, profit, whatever it is you care about. And essentially, that's the fundamental idea of media mix model. Okay, and there's a lot of packages as we're talking about to build these models now, and the time to market for these models has significantly changed in the last, I would say, 3-4 years. And but this is the idea. The idea still not changes. Is to basically correlate inputs to outputs, and these are the kind of inputs and outputs that go into a model. Okay. Now, what is this model? After you train it and you're happy with it, it becomes kind of an abstract representation of your business. Okay. Now you kind of modeled somewhat the P&L in the business at some level of coarseness. Now you can ask it some questions and it'll tell you some answers. Typically, what you can do is you can use it to go back and decompose the attribution for a particular variable. So how we use it in class is that to say, okay, of the $1 million in sales last month, how much should be attributed to TV versus Facebook versus search, and how much should be attributed to seasonal factors like A, B, and C, and what cannot be explained at all goes into what's called base. Okay. Now, so in a business, let's say we only use media variables, you might find that media drives 50% of the business, and 50% of the business is unexplained, or it goes into base. So that means that half of the business is walking in the door, not driven by media. So that's the way to understand it. Now you can break it down further by adding more variables to it. You can add one seasonality variable to it, second one to it, a third one to it, and see how much credit each one takes, and break down the base more and more. But fundamentally, the idea is to understand what is driving the business. And the beauty about the media mix model is it's very open-ended. You can use it for a variety of applications, all the way from understanding media to understanding competition, understanding seasonality, understanding interest rates and other econometric conditions in the market. And therefore, it's pretty powerful. But it's a pretty open-ended tool. Therefore, what you put in is what you get. Okay, if you kind of like go in and add a bunch of like for example, if you say add ice cream sales or the temperature of the oceans into it, it'll also correlate that. So it doesn't understand that what you're feeding it is just junk data. It'll be like, okay, I'm going to try and correlate that, and it'll give you some like meaningless attribution. Then you will be trying to understand what that means, right? So choosing inputs is kind of an art for media mix modeling. Too much will kind of make it like too noisy. Too little will make it kind of not useful. So trying to get the right inputs into the model is kind of an art even today. And there's a great starting point today. It is not as much of a white space as it used to be, but it still continues to be an area of art that you have to apply. Okay. The last point I would make here is that once you build a model, there is constraints around how much you can use the model. Okay, a lot of times when you have a model, you feel like it's a crystal ball. You ask it all kinds of things. Like if you say, okay, I'm spending $100,000 a week on Facebook. What happens if I spend $6 million a week? Well, it has no idea how to answer the question. But if you ask the question, it will spit out like a nonsense answer, right? So you have to understand that there is bounds around each one of these variables that you can simulate the model for. As long as you work inside those bounds and you can understand what you're working with, you can use it very meaningfully. So don't use the model as a crystal ball. It's really like a decision support tool, right? As long as you're trying to figure out what decisions to make and using the model as a decision support tool, you can get pretty good outcomes with it. Okay, let me pause right there.